Chelsea run out 3-0 winners in today's pre-season friendly game in Indonesia against AC Milan. Xabi-Ball looks like it's here. Romeo Lavia is setting records. Joao Pedro is already banging them away in bulk. But let's take a look at today's winners and losers in the game. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. Obviously, it's pre-season. As I've said with the games that we've lost, I also have to say that about the games that we're winning. But it's all about looking for positive signs. Obviously, the result is absolutely fantastic, but at the same time, I do think that we are starting to see things come together. So I'm not going to lie to you, there are not a lot of losers in today's game, so I've loaded it with winners, so let's have a look at who I've chosen. For today's first winner, it's Marco Pstra. What a player this guy is. So the interesting thing from the off, Marco Pstra, left wing back today. Do you know, and when he was brought in, you know, the conversation was had. He can play on the left, he can play on the right. I did not expect him to look even more effective on the left than he did on the right. Now, look, I still think he'll play largely, majoritively on the right. Do you know what I mean? But looking at him today, he was absolutely phenomenal. The ball carrying, the aggression, the attacking impetus, like so many fouls as well. Like he was the most foul player in Serie A last season, and I'm pretty sure he was the most foul player in today's game as well. He is such a handful to deal with. He needs to still improve on those final moments, right? The final pass, do you know what I mean? If he's looking to shoot, like those final moments definitely are where the area for improvement is. But Marco Pstra looked absolutely phenomenal today on that left-hand side and is looking like one of the best players in pre-season so far, if I'm completely honest. Like, he's just constantly been a threat. I don't think he's had a bad game so far. He's so two-footed, like he's so evidently two-footed, which is such a useful thing to have for a wide fullback. So yeah, for me, Marco Pstra is just exploding at the moment, and it's something we haven't really had in our team for a while. It doesn't get stuck inside its head, he just keeps on going. For me, if we can get Marco Pstra to improve his quality for those final balls and those last moments in the attacking third, I think we might have an unbelievable player on our hands here. Next up, it's a big winner. We're going to talk about Romeo Lavia. So I put Romeo Lavia combined with Dario Essigo in the losers category in the last game because, look, in pre-season so far, they just haven't looked on it. Jazuli has been getting a lot of game time as well, which tells you, you know, in itself, maybe these guys are struggling a little bit. But Romeo Lavia was absolutely phenomenal today. In that partnership with Moises Caicedo, he is, for me, the perfect counter, right? He's like a deep-lying distributor, and he kind of was the archetypal version of that today. He was pressing high and he was getting high, but for the most part, he was married to the middle of the pitch, and he gave Moises Caicedo, who also had a phenomenal performance, so much freedom to do other stuff other than just win the ball back. His defending was good. He was picking up second balls. His passing was really tidy. He looked energetic. He looked fit, and look, he played 90 minutes. It's the first time in 3 years since we've had Romeo Lavia. Look, because we got Romeo Lavia and Moises Caicedo at the same time. Moises Caicedo was obviously gone on from strength to strength, but with Lavia's injury issues, he just hasn't had the opportunity. I know it's not a competitive game, and I know it's not pre-season, but this is literally the first time Romeo Lavia has managed 90 full minutes for Chelsea, and his performance was just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Like, our midfield just looked safer, do you know what I mean? Because when Moises Caicedo is bombing around, and, you know, we're going to talk about him a little bit in a minute, spoiler alert, but Lavia just being there in the centre of the park, always, you know, not looking to get forward and score goals and stuff, do you know what I mean? He was pressing high and he was getting advanced sometimes, absolutely, but for almost the entire game, he did the majority of his best work in the top half of the centre circle, where he was receiving the ball, he was intercepting, like I say, he was just kind of just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. We haven't had a player like this for such a long time, do you know what I mean? Because we've had Enzo Fernandez largely coming in from there, and we've had fullbacks going in there and stuff as well. But a midfielder of that ilk who is just there to play that specific role, and like I say, the type that unlocks a Moises Caicedo as well. Look, if Lavia can stay fit, that's such a massive plus for us. It's such a massive plus for us because it gives you another option, another quality option, right? And look, I really, really, really hope that this is the Lavia that we get to see going forward. Now, the injury situation will be what it will be, right? You know, I imagine one more big injury, one way or the other, it's probably the end of Romeo Lavia. But after a performance like that, albeit in pre-season, you got to think we definitely need to be thinking about keeping him around. And that's counter to what I've said before, but I don't think we'd seen anything leading up until now. I mean, to be fair, that was the same with a lot of players today. Whatever happened between the Juventus game and today, the clicks seem to be starting to happen, right? Xabi Alonso seems to be getting this team to start to click together, and whatever it was he did with Romeo Lavia, or whatever the difference is between the last few games and this this one. Hopefully that's just what we see going forward. Next up, Josh Achampong, another player that I put in the loser category in the last video. What I think we saw today was prime Josh Achampong. I say prime, he's like 20 years old, do you know what I mean? But at the same time, I just think we saw the Josh Achampong today that we saw in the good games when he played well last season, like against Liverpool. He was a much tidier in defending today than he has been over the last few games. And also what we saw today is kind of his trademark, right? Josh Achampong receiving the ball and driving it into the midfield, slaloming past people and dribbling past people. In general, Josh Achampong had a much better game today. And like I say, almost similar to the Romeo Lavia situation, it seems like something clicked between the last few games and this one. And like I say, we saw a different Romeo Lavia today. And for me, we saw a different Josh Achampong today as well. Maybe another thing with it as well, with Josh Achampong in particular, is we played a back three today. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like a back four going into a back three. It was like we played a back three today, and he was that kind of right-sided centre-back. So maybe that position just suits his ability more, because that is where he played well for us under Enzo Maresca as well. So we'll move into what seem to be the slightly more obvious ones, and we'll start with, because I've spoken about him already, we'll start with Moises Caicedo. Moises Caicedo is a winner today because he's just so good. So good. And like I say, I think Moises Caicedo was unlocked a bit today because Lavia played so well. I do think that there is something in that. But Moises Caicedo, as well as what you would expect from him, his astute, excellent defensive work and harrying players down and aggressively winning the ball back, we're seeing creativity. We're seeing outside of the foot volleys. That goal, Moises Caicedo's goal was outrageous. It was so good. And look, we've seen Moises Caicedo pop up with a couple of long-range bangers and stuff before, but the instinct, the pure instinct for him to jump on that and bang it in like he did, chef's kiss, phenomenal. Not to mention, he also got an assist today. Look, he didn't score the most goals, but he was my man of the match today because it was a complete performance from Moises Caicedo. And like I say, this is why the midfield is so important, right? Because when you've got an Enzo Fernandez there, he's obviously looking to get forward a lot, right? Which means that Moises Caicedo has to focus more on that specific part of his game, which he is really good at, don't get me wrong. But when you've got a midfielder next to a Moises Caicedo, that gives him a bit more freedom. You see stuff like this. You see an assist. You see an outside of the foot volley. You see him trying to get deep and go forward and be creative and roam around the pitch a lot more. So look, Moises Caicedo, absolutely phenomenal performance. Came on with the captain's armband again, which is words that I might have to eat. Because for me, Levi Colwill seems like the most obvious choice. I don't think Enzo Fernandez, even if Enzo Fernandez stays, he can't be vice-captain anymore, can he? Let's be honest. I was very much of the opinion that Levi Colwill should be given that because I just think he's vocal, he's quite a natural leader. But Moises Caicedo keeps on getting the captain armband, and he led by example today. Do you know what I mean? 100% led by example. So phenomenal, absolutely wonderful performance from Moises Caicedo today. You love to see it. And of course, the last winner I've got today is Joao Pedro. So look, Joao Pedro scored 5 goals in 4 games in pre-season so far, and he's doing it from slightly different positions as well. So what it looked like to me today was, for the most part, it was like a 3-4-2-1 with Palmer and Joao Pedro playing behind Danny Welbeck and later Nicholas Jackson. But Joao Pedro was doing something that I've talked about in some of my lineup videos, earlier in the window, where he is kind of playing in that half space, but he's also driving forward to almost form a front two with Welbeck as well. And I think that that's a really good position for Joao Pedro, right? Because it gives him the ability to make the best of both of his skill sets, right? Because we know, look at the header. Do you know what I mean? The header from, that was another thing about Caicedo, by the way, I forgot to mention, taking set pieces. Absolutely phenomenal. What a great corner that was for Joao Pedro's goal, which was just an instinct moment, right? Do you know what I mean? It wasn't the flashiest thing in the world, but he got the ball in. And his second goal, again, absolutely great. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not all, he can score overhead kicks and long range bangers, and do you know what I mean? He's got all of that in his locker, but what he's also got is that instinctive number 9 kind of finish, and we absolutely love to see it. So when you play Joao Pedro in this half space kind of thing, rather than just being the number 10, do you know what I mean? Because in the original lineup it looked like a 4-2-3-1 with Joao Pedro playing in the middle, and Cole Palmer playing out on the right, but with Cole Palmer drifting a lot into the middle because Pedro Neto actually was holding the right as the right wing back, and Joao Pedro playing in that half space. It allows Cole Palmer to drift out and inward and get into the middle, and when Cole Palmer drifts into the centre, then Joao Pedro can drive forward to play a striker role. But when Cole Palmer is more out to the right, Joao Pedro can do his thing from the half space position as well. So look, how many goals is Joao Pedro going to get this season? 5 in 4 games in pre-season. Absolutely phenomenal start. He finished the season pretty well. You know, it's been the issue with Joao Pedro largely has been consistency, right? He's either scoring loads or not at all. But hopefully not going to the World Cup will mean that he's fit, he's ready. We're going into the season with him. He's going to be in every starting 11 for the most part, isn't he? You know, apart from when we need to rotate and rest. But yeah, Joao Pedro, absolutely phenomenal today. Just so good. And like I say, the thing I like about Joao Pedro is we know he's got the flash in his locker, but also he'll do things like he did today with tidy finishes and instinctive headers in the box. And you know, in the Western Sydney Wanderers game, it was obviously very different. What I loved about him then was he was receiving the ball and being calm, and it was like everything slowed down around him and he just popped it in. Do you know what I mean? Like really, really quality stuff there. But he was obviously phenomenal in today's game as well. So that's it. Now, honestly, I could go on. Do you know what I mean? I absolutely could go on. But instead of doing more winners, I'm going to talk about the losers, and then there are a couple of honourable mentions who I don't necessarily think get into the winners category, but definitely deserve a mention. So we'll talk about the losers first, and maybe this one's a little bit harsh, but I'm going to say Nicholas Jackson. Look, my issue with Nicholas Jackson, albeit I think that he can be pushed over the line, I think the potential is still there. Nicholas Jackson is good at doing all of the hard work and then struggles in that final moment, right? We saw it a few times today with the final ball or the finish in or being offside. These are recurring themes for Nicholas Jackson, which he doesn't seem to have managed to iron out of his game yet. Now, he's been in pre-season a lot less time than everyone else, do you know what I mean? And we've still got a couple of weeks to go, but if I'm completely honest, I still do think he's probably going to end up at Aston Villa, which would be a shame, because I do think potentially, like, you can see it in Nicholas Jackson's just like a nearly there player. Do you know what I mean? It's always, it was nearly a good finish, or it was nearly a good run, or it was nearly a good pass, and he just needs to cross that line from nearly to there, and all of a sudden you've got a really, really tidy player on your hands. But for me, Nicholas Jackson, maybe it's a bit harsh to call him a loser, but at the same time, it's like when you've got Joao Pedro putting him away, Moises Caicedo looking so good. Cole Palmer, albeit not an explosive player today, was connecting the play together really well and didn't really do much wrong. And when he was taking shots, he didn't feel like his finishing was bad. But when you see Nicholas Jackson, you know, pull it wide or whatever it is, you just think, it's just Jackson again. Do you know what I mean? So look, Nicholas Jackson, I do think he's a good player, but I think he's struggling so far. I think that his versatility would be such a useful ability to have, such a useful skill, because like I was talking about with Joao Pedro being able to play as a number 9 and from deeper, Nicholas Jackson's got that as well, and he can drift out to the left and he can play in the number 9 role. So it could really give us a fluid front three if Xabi Alonso unlocked him, but evidently it didn't happen in this game. The other loser is not a player. You probably saw it because I put it on the thumbnail. It's CFC Plus. So I paid the £15 for the annual charge for the CFC Plus for the year, mainly just so I can watch the preseason games, because that's a pretty good deal. What is it, like 6 games or whatever? The audio, man. What is wrong with the audio? Like, this is Chelsea Football Club. This is like a multi-billion-pound company, and they're charging people for audio that literally blips in and out every second. It's literally every second the audio beep, 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 like drops out, and it is infuriating. I literally basically had the game on mute, and I just had Jay's from Talking Chelsea's live stream on, and I was just like sort of listening to his watch along while I was watching the game. But come on, man. like you can't tell me the resources aren't there to make sure that Chelsea can have. So now, look, what I don't know is, because I'm not watching anyone else's preseason. I'm not watching Liverpool, Man United, or anyone like that. Maybe this is a common occurrence across the preseason games in general. I'm not sure, but it's really, really frustrating, man. And look, I know it's not very expensive. 15 quid for a year is a good deal, but it's not 15 quid for a year and there's a little disclaimer that the audio is going to be bad. Do you know what I mean? So come on, Chelsea, sort it out. Right, so that's the winners and losers. We're going to move on to the honourable mentions, which are people that I don't necessarily think, you know, like today was, for me, driven by Pstra, Achampong, Lavia, Joao Pedro and Caicedo. For me, those were the 5 players really that I had a lot to say about. But in the honourable mentions, I want to talk about 3 people in particular. The first one is Giovanni Kenda. Giovanni Kenda is raw at the moment. You can see that he's raw, but the mentality is phenomenal. He is fearless, absolutely fearless. He is taking like 20-yard volleys and he is trying to dribble through people. And look, it's not much coming off yet. And he looked really disappointed in himself when he's, you know, missed a shot or pulled it wide, or he didn't score the, you know, didn't score the long-range volley. He looked really disappointed in himself. And I kind of love that, because that shows you that he's got the mentality where he's like, he wasn't like, oh yeah, well I know I missed, but that was pretty good. He was like, I missed. That's not good enough. Do you know what I mean? So I absolutely love that. I think it's interesting. Kenda and Esteban-Willian, have only got 6 days between them in age. So we've got two of arguably the best young talents in the world in our team right now. Esteban-Willian is clearly a little bit further on in his development, but I really think there's something in Giovanni Kenda, and I'm really, really, I just love it, man. It's like big looping crosses, and, he's taking the shots, he's taking people on. Absolutely fearless player with an amazing work ethic. And look, I think that compared to Neto, who's one of the other honourable mentions, I just think he looks like he's going to try and make things happen a little bit more than Neto did. So Neto is my other honourable mention, right? Neto played at right wing back today, which is weird, right? Because and I've been saying this ad nauseum over the whole window. I don't foresee us playing inverted wing backs. I was completely wrong about that today, because we saw Marco Pstra on the left, and on the right, on the other side, we saw Pedro Neto playing that right wing back spot. And he put in an excellent shift. Definitely not as attacking as Marco Pstra, which is kind of what you expect from Xabi Alonso's teams. Classically, his wing-backs have had one more attacking and one more defensive one, right? But Pedro Neto put in a really good shift today, and he looked really disappointed when he came off as well, and I'm not exactly sure why. The thing is, he put in a really good performance at wing-back, but does he just not want to be playing there? Is that the thing? And maybe this is the thing that drives him towards a Man City or an AC Milan or a Liverpool or whatever it is. Liverpool have pulled out of the Bradley Barcola deal, by the way, so maybe Neto is an option for them. Tottenham also interested. Maybe Neto wants to be considered to be more of an attacking player. And he did what he was asked to do very well today. He got he got 8.2, which is massive. That's an amazing rating on SofaScore you got today. But maybe there's something in Pedro Neto that doesn't want to play as that kind of defensive right wing back, albeit he is very good at it. So I think his performance was definitely worth mentioning, because he put in a shift today, put in an absolute shift, but for some reason he looked really disappointed when he came off. And the last honourable mention is Austin McPhee. Man's been in the door for 10 minutes and we're scoring set pieces already, right? And you'd have to think that, for instance, little things like Caicedo is now taking corners. We've never seen that. We've literally never seen that. And, I think when Cole Palmer took one of the corners, it was like a short corner. So maybe someone else is going to take short corners. And Caicedo is maybe now an option for corners. Look, it's very, very early, and it could be happenstance at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going to get too into it, but it looks like already that 2 of our goals came from set pieces today. So it looks like that Austin McPhee is already getting his feet under the table and doing his job really well. And look, are we going to score 29 set pieces next season? Probably not, because that was, Aston Villa and Arsenal were the highest in Europe for that last season, so I wouldn't necessarily expect us to do that. But if he can help us defend and concede less from them and score more than we have been, and just become a threat from set pieces in general, I'm up for it, and I think Austin McPhee deserves a mention today. So guys, that's it. That is my winners, losers, and honourable mentions for the day. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Either way, it was easily the best game of pre-season so far. I think we're just starting, especially I think us starting with a proper 3 at the back has something to do with that as well. So look, I do feel like this is probably the formation that we're going to play in general. So just to recap, my winners were Marco Pstra, Josh Achampong, Romeo Lavia, who finished 90 minutes, Joao Pedro and Caicedo. My losers were Nicholas Jackson and CFC Plus, and my honourable mentions were Kenda, Neto and Austin McPhee. If you agree with me or disagree with me, let me know in the comments. Nice one, guys. I'm going to wrap the video up there, but thanks very much for sticking around until the end. If you did, I'll catch up with you all very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.